Before we begin, take a breath. This isn't just a podcast, Eve. It's a new way to think, speak, and live in English. Welcome to Coffluent Podcast, where words flow, confidence grows, and every sip brings you closer to fluency. Now, let's get right into something that, well, it might sound a little jarring at first.
Yeah, jarring's probably the best word for it.
Right. So if you look at the statistics of adult language learning, a staggering 90% of people who set out to learn English eventually quit.
90%. I mean, that is just an enormous failure rate.
It really is. And here's the kicker, right? It has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with the systemic failure of motivation.
Exactly. The foundation is just broken.
So today we're taking a deep dive into the underlying philosophy of language learning. We're drawing on the insights of educator A.J. Hoge, who, by the way, has decades of teaching experience and over 100 million downloads globally, and we're completely shifting the focus today.
We really are. We're moving away from that, that endless memorization of grammar rules.
Right, the stuff that makes people quit.
Exactly. And instead, we're unpacking the 6 profound psychological drivers that actually push people to near-native fluency.
It's a massive paradigm shift. But before we can understand what makes a successful language learner, we kind of have to look at what causes that 90% to fail.
Yeah, we have to dissect the roadblock. People quit because their entire foundation for learning is fragile. They rely on extrinsic motivation rather than a real intrinsic drive.
Which brings up a question I want to ask you, the listener, directly. Why are you learning English?
It's a tough question if you really stop and think about it.
It is, because if you pause and really reflect, the immediate answers that usually pop up are incredibly tactical. You might say, you need to pass the IELTS.
Right, or get a certain score on the TOEFL test.
Yeah, or maybe you just have this vague, undefined desire to get a better job.
And see, in this philosophical framework from the source, those are identified as surface goals. And surface goals create surface-level motivation.
Which just isn't enough, is it?
No, not at all. The danger of surface motivation is that it cannot withstand friction. There is this deeply illustrative story in the source material about a student named Jackie.
Oh, right. The coffee shop story.
Yeah. So Jackie was entirely consumed by her TOEFL test scores. She would spend her weekends camped out in coffee shops, surrounded by like a literal fortress of test prep books.
Just doing drill after drill.
Exactly. But despite months of this grueling routine, her actual ability to speak the language, to communicate dynamically with another human being, remained totally stagnant.
Because she was just optimizing for a metric.
Right. She completely lost sight of the mastery itself.
It's because the goal itself was hollow. I mean, learning English just to pass a test is essentially like training for a grueling 26-mile marathon just to get the free promotional t-shirt at the finish line.
That is such a perfect analogy.
Right, because the human brain is incredibly rational when it comes to conserving energy. As soon as a running gets genuinely painful, when your muscles are burning and you have blisters on your feet, your brain just does the math.
It realizes a cheap cotton t-shirt is simply not worth the agony.
Exactly. And it tells you to stop running, so you give up.
The mechanism of failure is basically built right into the goal. Now, it is important to note that a weak goal is perfectly fine if your needs are correspondingly small.
Sure, like if it's just a light hobby.
Right. If you're treating language learning as a weekend hobby, or if you just want to know enough vocabulary to order a croissant while on vacation, surface goals work fine.
I think the source mentions Steve Kaufman at link, right?
Yes, exactly. There are polyglots like Steve Kaufman who learn languages simply because they genuinely enjoy the puzzle of it. It's a passion.
But English occupies a really unique space, doesn't it?
It does. It is the connective tissue of the global economy. Most adult learners aren't studying it just for fun. They're trying to compete on a high-level international stage.
And competing on that stage requires a resilience that only comes from deep, profound reasons. So if those surface goals are the wrong fuel, if they are just the cheap t-shirt at the end of the marathon, what is the right fuel? Let's transition from why people quit to the first 2 deep reasons that actually sustain you through those difficult plateaus.
And the first one is perhaps the most primal human instinct of all. It's the drive to provide for your family and achieve freedom from financial stress.
Now, the underlying logic here seems pretty straightforward on the surface, right? Better English unlocks better job opportunities.
Yeah, and those jobs provide a higher income, and that income secures a safer, healthier life for your family.
But wait, let me push back on this a bit. Does speaking better English automatically equal more money? I mean, we all know brilliant people who aren't the most eloquent speakers.
That's a fair point.
Surely your raw technical skills, whether you are a programmer, an accountant, or whatever, matter more than having near native vocabulary, right?
It's a very rational assumption to make, but the reality of the global market tells a much harsher story. There's this phenomenon highlighted in the source called underemployment.
Underemployment. That's a heavy word.
It really is, and it is the tragic reality for millions of immigrants. Imagine a scenario where a highly trained structural engineer immigrates to a city like San Francisco.
Okay, so a very expensive, competitive city.
Right. And this person is brilliant. They understand complex mathematics, they have years of specialized experience, but instead of designing infrastructure, they end up driving an Uber or a Lyft for 12 hours a day.
Just because they haven't mastered the local language, that seems incredibly inefficient for everyone involved.
It is, but here is how the mechanism actually works in the real world. This engineer might have intermediate English. They can make small talk, read a map, get by. But in a high-stakes corporate environment, intermediate English becomes a glass ceiling.
How so?
Well, imagine sitting in a board meeting where a native speaker suggests a less efficient engineering solution. Our immigrant engineer knows is the wrong approach, but the sheer mental effort it takes to translate their objection, formulate the grammar, and interject smoothly.
Means the moment just passes them by.
Exactly. The lesser idea wins. Because of their strong accent and lack of fluidity, they are perceived often unconsciously as less capable by their peers or bosses.
That is heartbreaking.
It is. They get locked out of promotions and leadership roles, so they eventually just give up and take a survival job far below their intellectual capacity.
The frustration of that must be suffocating. You put in years of work to get your degree, but the language barrier acts as this invisible cage, which honestly flows perfectly into the next core driver. It isn't just about the paycheck anymore, is it?
No, it's about the fundamental human need for respect and recognition. Deep reason number 2.
Right, dignity.
Absolutely. When that brilliant engineer is driving a taxi, they're being systematically denied the dignity their intellect deserves. We all have this basic psychological need to be seen accurately by the world around us.
And when you cross the threshold from intermediate English to near native fluency, your entire posture changes. You no longer have to mentally rehearse a sentence before you speak.
And the way colleagues and clients treat you changes entirely. When you communicate with nuance and confidence, your boss stops seeing you as someone who needs extra patience.
You walk into a room and you are operating as an absolute equal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It alters your self-concept. You stop being the person anxiously searching for the right vocabulary word, and you become the person commanding the room's attention. That reclamation of your own dignity is a vastly more powerful motivator than trying to score points on a TOEFL test.
Oh, for sure. And once you have secured that foundation, you can comfortably feed your family, you have your professional respect, your motivation naturally shifts to what you can actually do with your life.
Which brings us to deep reason number 3. Freedom and independence.
Right. Near native English acts as a master key for international freedom, and the source breaks this down into a few distinct categories, starting with career freedom.
Yeah, if you are fluent in the international language of business, you are no longer tethered to the economic health of your home country. If your local economy crashes, you have the skills to apply for remote positions at multinational corporations anywhere in the world.
You basically have the whole globe as a backup plan. You aren't trapped. And that ties directly into the next aspect, which is travel freedom.
This is a big one. Consider the difference between traveling with intermediate English versus near-native fluency.
Oh, it's night and day.
Right. With intermediate English, you are often relying on tour guides, or you just feel this constant low-level panic. The source uses this great example. Imagine being in a massive international airport, say in Frankfurt, and your connecting flight is suddenly canceled.
That is a nightmare scenario.
It is. And if you struggle with the language, you are entirely at the mercy of whoever is behind the customer service desk. You feel helpless, you can't argue, you can't negotiate, you just have to accept whatever they tell you.
But with true fluency, you can advocate for yourself. You can read the fine print, negotiate a hotel voucher, and solve the problem without breaking a sweat.
Exactly. It removes the helplessness. Then there is information freedom. The harsh reality is that the vast majority of the world's most cutting-edge scientific research, medical journals, and global discourse happen in English first.
Yeah, if you have to wait for an article to be translated, you're always operating 5 steps behind. Fluency grants you unfiltered access to the broader internet.
And finally, under this umbrella of freedom, there is personal freedom. If you move to a new country, you can navigate the bureaucracy yourself. You could open a bank account, talk to your child's school, all without relying on a translator.
You are a fully autonomous adult, which connects beautifully to deep reason number 4, growth and mastery.
Right. The source brings up this Japanese concept called kaizen, which translates to constant and never-ending improvement. Biologically, psychologically, if we are not growing, we are stagnating.
I love the analogy the source uses here, comparing the human mind to water. Think about water that is trapped in a depression with nowhere to go. It sits there, it stagnates, and it eventually turns into this smelly, dirty, toxic swamp.
It's a gross image, but it's very accurate.
Right. But a learning mind is like a pure, fast-moving mountain stream. It is vibrant. And if we connect this back to what we discussed at the very beginning, surface goals are essentially a puddle.
Yeah, they dry up quickly as soon as things get tough.
Exactly. But deep reasons are like a river. They have the sheer kinetic force to carve a canyon out of solid rock over a lifetime.
And learning English keeps that river flowing. It keeps your brain active whether you are 30, 50, or 70 years old. And the beauty is you can start learning other subjects like business or psychology through the medium of English.
So if we follow that river analogy, every river eventually connects to the ocean. Which brings us to the final and maybe the most profound reasons in this deep dive, how we connect with others and how we are remembered.
Deep reason number 5 is connection and belonging. To grasp how vital this is, the source makes a powerful point about the prison system. The ultimate punishment you can inflict on someone is solitary confinement.
Because humans desperately need connection.
Yes, we are biologically wired to belong, and English connects you to 2 billion people worldwide.
It is the ultimate cure for the isolation so many international students feel. The #1 complaint from immigrants isn't the workload, it's profound loneliness.
Because you are trapped in a linguistic glass box. You can make small talk with intermediate English, but to form a genuine friendship, you need nuance. You need to express your specific sense of humor or share a subtle emotional vulnerability.
And without that, you're presenting a flattened version of yourself. But near-native fluency shatters that glass box. The source shares incredible real student stories to prove this.
Oh yeah, like Alana and Iman making close friends all over the world.
Right, or Carol from France, who built global Skype groups just to maintain those connections, and Fernanda from Brazil.
Fernanda's story is great. It shows how fluency transforms you from a typical tourist just taking photos of the Eiffel Tower into someone who travels to meet local friends and really engage. You belong everywhere.
Which sets up our final psychological driver, deep reason number 6, identity and legacy. This is where it gets really deep.
It does. It involves a massive psychological shift in your internal narrative. You go from saying, I am an English student, it's a very passive identity, to saying, I am an international leader.
Your whole concept of who you are transforms. And your legacy is what happens when that identity outlives you. The source creator shares this really personal realization about fatherhood.
Yes, how having children forces you to face your weaknesses. Because your kids are always watching you. They watch how you handle struggle and frustration.
The life and the skills you construct through your mastery of English, the financial stability, the perseverance that becomes the blueprint you hand down to your children, that is your legacy after you're gone.
You are actively altering the trajectory of your entire family line. You are ensuring your children remember you as someone who faced an immense challenge and refused to give up.
Wow. We have covered an incredible landscape today. We've moved from the shallow puddle of trying to beat a standardized test all the way to creating a legacy and forging deep human connections.
So much better than just aiming for a test score.
Right. So what is the actionable advice for you listening right now? The ultimate call to action here is to sit down and physically write your deep reasons out. Pick the specific drivers that resonate with you. Put them on your wall and let go of those surface goals.
A test score cannot comfort you when learning gets tough. There is this great rhyming quote from the source, English sparks the fire that takes you higher.
I love that. The language is just the tool to elevate your entire life.
Absolutely. And to help you start utilizing that tool, there are fantastic next steps available in the source material, like the free book and the Power English course.
Yes, and we highly recommend you check out those resources through the Fluent podcast to begin building that resilient motivation.
It is about letting go of the rote memorization and really grounding yourself in the deep why.
Exactly. So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today. Think back to Jackie, sitting alone in that coffee shop, disconnected from the vibrant world outside. Contrast that with the mountain stream, connecting to the vast ocean of humanity. If your English fluency was a mirror reflecting your ultimate purpose in life, what exactly is looking back at you?